Slam Pigs Cruise Control Episode 7 coming at you live. Usually, I will be throwing it to my co-host for Cruise Control. In all seriousness, real quick, best wishes to my good pally Logan, who unfortunately has got some medical stuff going on. Could not make the episode today last minute, unfortunately, due to time constraints and other stuff going on this week. This is the only time we can record it, but Logan is always that guy that, you know, the show has to go on. And Logan, man, can't wait to have you back on next week, buddy. You are missed. Get well soon, my friend. But, as advertised, like I said, don't want to let anybody down. This week, first ever guest on anything we've done cruise control related right here on Hibiki TMD. Please welcome, representing second member. I just met you guys this week. I met a lot of people. Christ, in like the past 2 weeks or so, and it's great, tremendous. Glad I met all you guys, very chill people. It's all about networking on our end on Slam Pigs, and we love to do this. But from the BearClub, Michael MSporate on Twitter. Man, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this. I know how tired you are and the time zone differences over there. Another jolly old friend from the UK coming on here, not Union Smack Cruise Control, but man, I know you do too, a live show that I enjoy listening to. I enjoy a lot of your podcasts. That's a big reason I had you on, because a lot of people don't watch 205 Live. We are the few, we are the proud. But man, thank you again. And where can everyone check you out on Twitter? All that good stuff and what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it. It's a privilege and an honor, and the pleasure is all mine. Hi to everyone that's watching, and yeah, just before I do plug myself, just all the best to your co-host, Logan. I hope everything gets sorted for him as quickly as possible, and he gets back to full fitness and back on the show where he belongs. You can find me on Twitter. My personal channel is MSporate316, YouTube channel, the exact same name, and as you have pointed out, Travis, I am also a founding member of BearClub 316 on Twitter and YouTube. So go and check those both out, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It really is truly appreciated. But we're here to talk 205 Live by the looks of it. Not very many people do, but we'll give it a damn good go.
You know, and if anything, real quick, shout out to one of your cohorts, Miss March, who did come on the Slam Pig show the other night. So you guys are good people. Check them out. Definitely get over there, subscribe, give them a listen. But yeah, you and I, they've actually made me a little embarrassed this week, because I feel like Michael, and by the way, I know you've never been on a Slam Pig show. It is so weird for me in a year and a half to have a co-host named Michael that's not my brother, my actual co-host, so I got to get used to it a little bit. It's weird deja vu things. It's like my brother's polite. I can't, because he's not. It was really bad this week, man. And like last week's, I thought was such a good episode that had a nice, somewhat flow, more than we've seen usual. Plus the end ring with Rich Swann and Neville last week, tremendous. But this week, totally fell flat as an understatement. I don't know how consistently you've been giving the show positive reviews in the last couple weeks. Would you agree that it's kind of seemed like it may have been turning a corner somewhat, as opposed to, you know, like the quality we've been getting? But this week totally was shit the bed.
I think 205 Live in general, over the last couple of weeks, probably 5-6 weeks, has definitely started an incline in terms of the in-ring action and also the seriousness in storylines. But with the present day in the WWE in general, and especially on 205 Live, some of the storylines are just really, really poor, and they just seem to drag on far too long. And there's one in particular that we're probably going to talk about that featured quite heavily this week, which is the Noam Dar, Cedric Alexander, and Alicia Fox love triangle, which I've mainly been giving 205 Live sort of very average and sort of just positive reviews the last couple of weeks, because I do, as you say, I feel they've turned a corner. But this week, really, it's going to be a shame to have to do my review tomorrow and get it out on Thursday or Friday, whichever day tomorrow is. I've lost track. I'm so tired. But yeah, it's going to be a real shame to give it a down. It is going to be a real shame to give it a bad mark, because weeks of positivity and then now just bad.
It's like, this is our 7th episode, like I said, and last week, it's such a change of pace for where I came into going into this week's episode. Last week, I was actually excited for once. Like, I DM'd Logan, I was like, man, I can't wait to talk about this. This week, I have my head hung low, like you said, walking into it like a defeated man. Like, yep, just got to pull that Band-Aid off and talk about the show. We will get to Noam Dar, and my God, we're going to have a lot to say about that. But first, the show kicked off, besides the usual intro and whatnot, with I tweeted out earlier today, I put it at number 3 on my 2017 shit list thus far, as far as segments on WWE television.
Yep.
On paper, man, before I knew what we were getting, with the little backstage promo from Jack Gallagher, which not one of his worst, not one of his best, just you know what I mean? It was there. The Brian Kendrick, I was excited to see him come back because we haven't seen him since that great street fight with Tozawa. This is not the Brian Kendrick I think any of us ever fucking wanted, though, Michael. What did you think of this shit show? Shit show would be complimentary in describing how bad this segment was, man.
Okay, so first of all, as an Englishman, and I don't know to any of you guys that do go and check out my channel or BearClub, especially on BearClub, you'll know that all the other guys are stateside, and I'm the only Brit, and I'm always referred to as the English gentleman, much like Jack Gallagher. I've got the posh tone of voice and the higher level of vocabulary.
But for every Jack Gallagher and William Regal, there's a Vinnie Jones, or you know what I mean?
Exactly. And don't even get me started on Vinnie Jones. That's a whole different conversation.
I know. Every one of my UK pallies, they fucking hate Vinnie Jones, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
He was a nasty piece of work, but he made himself a success. So it's more than what most people from the UK can say about themselves, to be honest. But I just found it went through disrespectfully bad, and sort of found amusing to me. But it was that bad. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got good, bad, terrible, and then you find amusing through the bottom of terrible. That's what this segment was.
And you go to that whole other plateau where this was, and let's go ahead and say it. At the end of the day, history has shown us that the impersonating gimmick never fucking pans out, gets over, unless it's something like Sandow. And you see by the end, people were maybe burn out on the Sandow thing when he was Macho Man. I think about Charlie Haas in like 2008 when it was funny for like 2 weeks. This wasn't even funny for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, this was so bad. And Brian Kendrick isn't not the guy to pull that gimmick off. He is more the get in type your head, strategically, like a Triple H type heel would, because he has that great way in his promos to do that mental mind fuck. He came out dressed as Jack Gallagher, guys, because I know none of you guys watched 205 Live. And why would you? Why would you after this fucking shit? He came out dressed as Jack Gallagher, to the exact entrance music and everything. But the mustache down to the umbrella, it was just bad. I'm not even going to bother reciting the promo because it was stale and mundane as you can imagine. You know what I mean, Michael?
Yeah, he ran down England, and I don't like that. I think the term I used was hella pissed. And I know that sounds completely ridiculous coming out of my mouth with, as I say, my tone of voice. But yeah, just you don't run down England. I'm sorry, we're a shit country, but only English people are allowed to say that.
If anything, they're sticking to their guns. Because I will say, a shout out to our UK show, Union Smack. We've been reviewing these retro UK pay-per-views, right? They've been doing this since their first one in '97. It seems like 60% of these pay-per-views back then the promos were shitting on England. It's like they can't help themselves, you know?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
I didn't mean to cut you off, man. Sorry.
One thing I do want to say is I feel, and I'm not being biased when I say this. I'm honestly not being biased when I say it. I feel that Jack Gallagher deserves more.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean by that? Like he deserves more than being put into what looks like it's going to be a feud with Brian Kendrick, which doesn't faze me. It doesn't upset me at all. Both fantastic workers. Brian Kendrick, probably one of the best heels behind Neville on 205 Live. And Jack Gallagher, absolutely just the embodiment of charisma when it comes to the Cruiserweight division. But the start of the feud being, I'm going to do an impersonation of you, and then I'm going to beat you up with your umbrella. Like, really?
Can I please get more of that voice on this episode? That's my request. You know what? You're exactly right, because in the CWC tournament, hell, even in Progress, Jack Gallagher was one of the most entertaining guys in both of those things, and there was not an umbrella in sight. He doesn't need, he's not Perry Saturn. He doesn't need a mop. He doesn't need that shit. He's Jack Gallagher. Mm-hmm. He's capable of it, but there's this shit that's lost in translation, man, when these guys make the jump into, well, let's go ahead and, put the umbrella effect of Vince's hands. When it comes into Vince's hands on these main roster shows, say what you want. He could give probably two shits about 205 Live, but at the end of the day, I still like to think Vince, when it goes out on his television, he's in there somewhat. He's got his fingertips in it, and it shows with shit like this.
Triggered. People are pissed.
It took him 2.5 minutes this week into the show to trigger me. You sons of bitches, don't me. But the match. Go ahead.
Go on.
No, by all means.
I was just gonna say the going back to the umbrella and Brian Kendrick's promo. He was like pip pip cheerio, cup of tea, and it's like, right, all the stereotypes that, and I'm saying stereotypically, that the Brits have, they portray them on all of the British characters that they don't seem to care for, and the ones that they do care for, they kind of allow them to be their own character. So, for example, you've got Jack Gallagher, who embraces everything that it is to be an Englishman, and they've gone even further with that, with his entrance music, with his Tron, with the umbrella, with his suits.
You're right. And then you have the other end, you have Pete Dunne, who's like this badass fucking, not a mention of his British heritage in any of his gimmick. He just is Pete Dunne,
Exactly, but it's Pete Dunne. And shout out to Kristen, member of BearClub, Miss March, that you had on the show, because that, I believe Kristen is described as Pete Dunne is her hall pass. So shout out to her for that, because you can't say Pete Dunne and Kristen in the same show.
I actually got to bring up the chat here myself. Like I said, guys, not prepared this week with the Logan stuff. So guys in the live chat, I'll be there in a second. But yeah, I agree. It just seems like the only two guys that Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. Besides that, I mean, maybe Wolfgang, but they're not investing a lot of this serious. They can't help themselves with stereotypical British stuff in there with any other UK talent, unless it's a UK show exclusively. Then everyone gets everyone's taken seriously. But
I just love what they've done with Neville. I just love it.
Oh my God!
We'll probably talk about him towards the end.
7 episodes in it, man. Every week, more and more. Just like this week, he plays to the crowd so well. We'll get to that later, but I will say, who knew? I say that every week. Who the fuck knew he had this within him to just everything about his promos, his facials, his mannerisms, you know what I mean? It's Neville. If you guys are watching and you're not a fan of Neville and anything he's doing, at least a smidge, you're not watching the same show we are. And you just, I hate to say it, you don't understand wrestling. But the match itself, Gallagher and Kendrick Michael, was not a lot to it. Not terrible. Just, I'm sure it's hard to pull off a lot of spots in slacks. But to Brian Kendrick's credit, I guess he pulled it off for what he could. It was no, The Rock sliding in dress shoes, delivering the people's elbow, but, with dress shoes, Brian Kendrick could have been worse. Really, the match, he just beat the shit out of him afterwards, and that was that. Insert next week for the same recycled bullcrap. Probably a new impersonation. Who knows?
Can I insert here a comment about Brian Kendrick trying to decapitate the audience with the broken umbrella?
Yes.
Did anyone else catch that?
I did. Go ahead.
This made me laugh so much because he's beating Jack Gallagher with the first umbrella, and he's beating him, and the umbrella actually snaps off, and he's just left with the wooden cane part of it. So instead of sort of dumping it on the outside, he launched it into the crowd. He launched it, and I'm sat there somebody's gonna get a lawsuit filed against them for that shit. Do you know
How can I forget about that? You're right. I guess I just tried to forget about this whole fucking thing, and I just blocked it out of my mind. Yeah, that did happen. That was I got a good laugh out of that. Did you notice the guy, by the way, real quick before we move on? During the Gallagher entrance, when he was standing in the ring, I could see it on the hard cam. There was some guy in the crowd just shaking his head in disgust that he's even looking at a guy like Jack Gallagher. He was just like, man, this guy looks like a bitch. If you get a chance to go back, see if you can find that guy. Shout out to that guy.
I will go and have a look. Bringing that point in. Go on.
No, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I was just going to say, just bringing that point into fruition. Not feeling disgusted having to watch someone like Jack Gallagher. Step in a ring with him, please.
Yeah,
because
a lot
I
of
guarantee
people,
you, from what
I guess the biggest well-known person to bash him was Vince Russo when he came out and called him a pussy, pretty much. But a lot of people don't know about Jack Gallagher. He's a pretty established MMA fighter. He's legit, guys. I would not mess with him unless I wanted to be twisted into a pretzel.
Yeah, I'm not just stealing lines from Corey Graves, but the snake pit in Wigan that he was trained in for his mixed martial arts is a scary place. And I've only seen it video-wise.
Isn't it, like, at the end of the day, and I'm not too familiar with it, but the stories I hear about anybody that comes out of Wigan is pretty badass and legit at the end of the day? Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty tough upbringing, I hear.
Some say Vinnie Jones came from Wigan. No, I'm kidding, he didn't.
Did that move the train on in the show? By the way, in the chat, shout out to Thrax, buddy Thrax. BearClub 316 is actually in the house. And
that's me.
Oidiot. Oh, that's you. My bad. And Kristen, Miss March. So thank you guys for stopping by. Did this move on to the shitty, horrible No Amdar backstage promo that pissed me off and just made me want to go take a piss? Is that where we are next? It was No Amdar backstage with Cedric Alexander, I believe. No Amdar approached someone back. No, it was Arya Daivari and No Amdar backstage. No Amdar apologizing for destroying the $15,000 T-shirt last week. You know, Logan is a bigger fan of Arya Daivari than I am. I just don't see. I mean, his brother, I didn't see a lot there either, so I don't know why I would hear. What did you think about this terrible exchange verbally? Neither one of these guys should probably be towards a mic anytime in the future, especially No Amdar.
So we're talking about Arya Daivari and No Amdar backstage.
Yeah.
Didn't that? I don't want to be a douche, but
didn't that
happen later on in the night?
Did it? Oh, I don't know where we're at with it as far as the format. I thought it happened after the Gallagher.
Because I watched it back about an hour ago in preparation for this show, just to sort of give myself a refresher. And to some people sat there going, "Why he watched it once? Why has he watched it twice? Like, I don't even watch it once. Why is he watching it twice? I take this shit seriously. I'm sorry." And
they don't realize that we do it for them, so they don't have to watch it. So we take we bite the bullet for you people.
We do it so you don't have to. No, but I mean, we could. It's your show, 100%. I'm not trying to.
By all means, it doesn't really matter if it's like if I'm wrong. It won't be the first or the last time. If anything, now that I mentioned it, it was such a bad segment. I feel like we should just get it out of the way so we don't have to go back to it later on.
Fair enough. I just the next segment was the Mustafa Ali and Drew Gulak, but we'll do the No Amdar, just get it out of the way. Yeah, I'm actually a really big fan of No Amdar, like a real big fan. Like ever since WCPW and Progress and not Evolve, is it Evolve?
ICW.
ICW, or everywhere he's been. I've essentially followed him and people that were with him: Jack Gallagher, Tommaso Ciampa, Tommy End, who is now Aleister Black. Like all of these guys, I've tried to keep an eye on as much as possible to build my knowledge. Because for anyone that doesn't know, I'm only 21, and I only started watching wrestling in 2010. So I'm very far behind the times, if that makes sense. So I've tried to do as much digging in as many holes as possible to try and gather up knowledge on future superstars and the past and the present and everything like that.
Right.
So Noam Dar for me has always been the sort of character that if he's used correctly, he could be a champion of any brand, and he's just not being used right. And again, like Jack Gallagher, he just deserves so much more than to be stuck with Alicia Fox.
Best No Amdar impression I've ever heard so far. Well done. I gotta agree with everything you said. I think the problem is with the No Amdar we're getting is not the No Amdar we saw on ICW and WCPW. You know what I mean? Like he kind of is, but in there, like they had the whole Dar Wars thing, and that shit was tremendous from what I've seen of it. It just they're making it hokey. Did you see the Pizza Hut commercial with him and Gallows and Anderson backstage a couple weeks ago?
That was dreadful. Nerd.
Oh God, so bad. But yeah, I agree. They just need to. I don't know what their mindset is with this Alicia. Like, I get it. He's the kind of heel. He's a good looking guy. Yes, he needs a woman. But this whole FaceTime shit, it was entertaining. I will give it credit for 1 week. It entertained me with Alicia Fox on Skype. But other than that, and I was so like refreshed when Cedric first came back. Like I'm sure you were. It seemed like they weren't going to go back to the storyline with Cedric. But here we are a couple weeks later, Michael. And where are we with this? You know.
Right back to square one with a feud that started 8.5 months ago.
In 2017, with fans that had the attention span of a fly. You know what I mean? And it's not like the feud was ever good in the first place. To carry on an 8-month feud this shitty and so lackluster is beyond me. Especially both these guys deserve. Everybody on this show deserves better than anything they're being given right now. Besides like a Neville or Tozawa, anybody that's not in the title picture is being given crap for the most part. Gulak and Mustafa Ali to get off of Noam Dar's verbal promo skills for a second.
Yeah, please.
We'll get back to it later. Trust me with the Rocky reference. Holy shit, that was bad. I've been, oh my God, I got to tell you, and I think we talked about this off air. If anything, the breakthrough star for me, a guy I never thought would be over with me from watching the CWC tournament, was Mustafa Ali. Like, he was so outshined by guys like Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr. in the tournament. It was hard for him to stand out, but now that he has that platform too, one of my favorite guys on the fucking show, Michael, I got to say.
So Mustafa Ali, when I saw him in the CWC, because the CWC was my favourite, all of last year, everything that happened, it was obviously it was my favourite tournament because it was the only tournament.
One of the best things they've ever done on their television was that tournament last year, and I completely agree.
Yeah, and that stretch of television and those stretch of matches and just the matches that you had in the first rounds and the second rounds and then obviously the third semis, etc. All of those matches were absolutely, they were mind-blowing. And Mustafa Ali went out in the first round, I believe, and he wasn't even meant to be a part of the tournament. He was actually brought in as a reserve because there was a certain Brazilian cruiserweight who wasn't able to get like a work permit or something of the sort like that. I can't quite remember the guy's name. But yeah, Mustafa Ali was brought in as a backup. And to see and hear that and see that he's now getting probably one of the biggest reactions outside of the title picture from the crowd who hate the show, but he's still getting positive shout and positive pops. It's insane to me.
I think a lot of the reason I don't want to compare it to Austin McMahon because it's so far fallen from Austin McMahon type levels, but in a way, I think one of the biggest reasons Ali is getting the reactions he is because of how good Drew Gulak is as a heel in this role. I would say any good antagonist needs a good protagonist, and vice versa. Like they always say, it's cliche but true, guys. And a lot of people weren't big on the no-fly zone gimmick. I'm taking it what it is. I gave it a chance, and the more, it's a case of I'm a big fan of guys who take a lame gimmick and make it work. Like turn it around in the booker's face, be like, "Fuck you! You straddle me with this bullshit. See what I can do with it." And I figured out what I did, Michael, when I messed up my little format this week. The promo that made me cringe before the Dart promo later was actually Mustafa Ali and Drew Gulak. Yeah. For some reason, usually it hasn't been this bad, but these guys were just off this week, it felt like, in this promo.
Mustafa Ali needs to stick to flying. Drew Gulak needs to stick to the ground, and both of them need to stay the fuck away from a microphone, or a megaphone, for that matter.
My God, well put. Couldn't have said that myself, honestly. But that was the promo, Michael, so I fixed it. I broke it, but I fixed it. It's okay. But yeah, the match, I enjoyed the match. I've enjoyed all their matches. You're right there, like you said off air also to me earlier, it needs to stop after this. And my buddy Matt from UK Union Smack show, him and I always say that they should move Gulak up to the main roster because there's no way he could be 205. Like, I'm sure he could eat a cheeseburger tomorrow and he's not a cruiserweight anymore. He's like borderline that close. But I think this no-fly zone gimmick, they need to translate this to what's going on in reality with this ... dive stuff. When a guy like Luke Harper, since he has nothing to do, a bigger guy diving, then you have Gulak coming out and start a feud with Harper saying, "You're a big guy, you don't need to dive, stay grounded." Just move him off Mustafa Ali. There's a lot of routes you could go with this gimmick. And I think Drew Gulak, as much as I've been telling people to watch 205 Live or in-ring, he deserves better than to be on 205 Live. I could totally see him being on SmackDown. What do you think about that booking?
I think that's very intriguing, and I think this is probably going to be the first time where you and I disagree on a character, because I liked Drew Gulak in the CWC for the brief time I saw him, and I thought, this is a guy like a dark horse when they do bring the Cruiserweight division to Raw, and it was announced that he was one of the people that were going to be signed. Or that was confirmed for the show. I was like, this is a guy, you need to look out for him, dark horse. And then he was threaded in with Tony Nese, and they were doing 6-man tags and things like that. I was like, okay, I can get with this. And now he's gone to this stupid, and I'm saying stupid, this stupid gimmick. And the first time it entertained me was last night when he went to the second rope. Yeah. And his knees were trembling, and the crowd are like going, "Go to the top, go to the." He's like, "I can do this, I can do this," and then tremendous. It's like,
it was tremendous.
Bye. That's the only time he's made me laugh. But I mean, if he continues to do stuff like that, I will reinvest in Drew Gulak. But just keep him off of the megaphone, please.
Yeah, I think another case of it, I don't think it speaks to his talents as a performer. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, superficially, because WWE is all about your money as your face and stuff. Drew Gulak, when he had the beard and he was just doing that, Dean Malenko badass type gimmick where he was just, just go out there and wrestle. On the same end, you have a guy like Oney Lorcan, Biff Busick in the same company. At the end of the day, a lot of similarities. You could even say that now that he's a single about Tommaso Ciampa. Those guys all kind of look the same and kind of work the same.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this influx of Japanese talent. Like every time they bring in a new guy from Japan, they get so excited. But look how well bringing in Nakamura worked out for Hideo Itami. It totally overshadowed Hideo Itami right now, and he's clawing and scraping to get relevant again. And I worried about a guy like Drew Gulak because I was a big fan of his on the Indies, but I wasn't in love with the gimmick. I'm not in love with the gimmick, but like you said, yes, I totally agree. When he did stuff like this going to the top, certain things make you fall in love with the gimmick. Like you go back to the Attitude Era, the right to censor gimmick is what this most reminds us all of, obviously, with Steven Richards and stuff. That wasn't great, but there were some moments every week where you get a laugh out of you. And I think that's a case of what this is. It's a solid mid-card gimmick where it's not going to go anywhere, but you're glad it's better than seeing the guy squander into irrelevancy, I guess, as cannon fodder job guy on NXT. Like, unfortunately, Oney Lorcan has been, but I don't know if you caught the match with Oney Lorcan and Itami a couple weeks ago. I think that's going to kind of springboard Oney Lorcan's career a little bit because that match was amazing. But I'm glad they made Drew Gulak shave his beard and separate himself from that. Everybody has to have a fucking beard now. Everybody has to have a fucking man bun. Like it's getting ridiculous. Like look, I like Andrade Cien Almas. Marty Squirrel, however the fuck you say his name, he looks like a good wrestler. But they look like twins because all these guys look the fucking same. You know what I mean? So I'm okay with it for now. Like I said, but I would much rather see him with a bigger guy to take this angle with, not just a cruiserweight. But the match itself, I mean, besides that hilarious, you didn't mention the Jimmy Superfly hand gesture spot when he did the splash. That was awesome.
No, because what I was going to say was I want to give him a shout out because on the exact same night, about 15, 20 minutes before 205 Live, Tamina fell from the top rope with a Superfly splash. And Gulak, who's never been to the top rope in his life, performs a better one missing than Tamina did copying her daddy. So he gets another shout out.
I don't watch I have not watched SmackDown yet, so that's why I didn't know that. But the fact that they did
Go and watch it, please.
Wow. That's tremendous. I need to see that Tamina spot.
She fell.
God. All right, no more spoilers. No more spoilers for me. I've been avoiding SmackDown spoilers. Anyway, let's move the trip. This was, I think, the Ari Daivari segment now in No Amdars when this fell into place after this match. By the way, Mustafa Ali did get the win. We neglected to mention. Go ahead and tell everybody about the finish real quick, Michael, because I'm an idiot.
Oh, right, okay. So Mustafa went for his diving through the between the top and the middle rope, his neck breaker, hit that, and went for, I believe it was another high-flying move, and missed. And Drew Gulak decided to go to the top, to the second rope, and the crowd sort of built him up, and he was going, you could see the wheels turning in his head. He was like, I can go to the top here. And the crowd are getting behind him, and his legs are trembling, bless him, and he's really putting on like a show. And he's like, I can do this. He's like screaming at the crowd, I can do this. And he sits up and he steadies himself, and he goes to the top. He does the Superfly pose, goes for the Superfly splash and completely misses. And Mustafa Ali decides to, instead of going to the top rope where he could have done his inverted 450 splash, he decides to use I can't remember the name of the move. He rolled him up essentially with a cradle.
La Magistral cradle, I think it was.
That's
that's what it was. Yeah. I had to think for a second. I had to dig deep in my encyclopedia of nerd.
I'm just so tired. That's why I can't remember names. I was so tired during a show before that I called an Oshigoroshi a burning hammer, and I got slated on that video. Like, people were ripping into me during that video. So I try my best to do the names of moves, but yeah, when I'm tired, I get them wrong.
Well, how dare you get that wrong, Michael, you piece of shit. People are so
I
sensitive.
know, I'm just a ginger asshole from the UK. I deserve to burn in hell. Ironically, that was one of the comments. So he picks up the victory with the cradle, and for the second week in a row, he's beaten Drew Gulak using ground game.
Yep.
Doesn't that, to me, just sort of scream irony?
I mean, yeah, that's...
Drew Gulak's trying to tell him not to high fly.
It makes me want to see Drew Gulak get a win, though. Because it makes it, it's the irony of it that makes it predictable that Ali's going to win every week. They need to at least, even if he cheats, give Gulak a win eventually to make it a little bit even.
I think they're 3-2. I think Mustafa Ali's beaten him 3 times, twice with ground game and once with a high flying. And Drew's got 2 victories in the last 5 or 6 weeks.
I will say before, you know what stood out to me in this match? I love Mustafa Ali when he's on the apron crouching and he like does that roll in and then hits that neck breaker. It's a sick move. And I like he was focused and the camera zoomed in on his face and I liked how they shot that. And it really stood out to me in this match.
He's definitely progressing as a character with his facial expressions as well. So yeah, he's definitely on the up.
He seems like one of those guys like a Sami Zayn. Like he could play this, lovable babyface, but when he gets serious, like we saw from Rich Swann last week, like he can fucking go. You know what I mean? And it's surprising.
That was awesome.
But fuck the Daivari Noam Dar segment. We're not going there again, Michael. This led to Cedric Alexander and Daivari, I believe.
Yes.
I mean,
that's correct.
It was a good match. These guys have been having good matches. It was Ari Daivari did finally get a win, a cheap heel win, but that's okay. He's a heel. He's supposed to cheat, guys. The only thing I hated was how this fucking feud with Noam Dar. I'm so sick of it. Noam Dar runs down with the interference, obviously distraction from behind. Daivari hits his hammerlock clothesline, which looked tremendous the way Cedric Alexander sold that, by the way.
It did.
Thank God you can do a backflip, because if you do that to the Big Show, it's going to look like shit. What did you think of this match, Michael?
To be perfectly honest with you, I thought it was paced very well. These two did show off great chemistry together. And the in-match pacing, as well as the general match pacing, was perfect because it started off all guns blazing. Cedric Alexander, all of his quick moves, all his combos, all of his flippy shit, as it's more commonly known. And then it slowed down, and you had Ari Daivari control ground game, and then it picked up a little bit, and it came back down to the ground game with the chokehold and the submission type, and then when you anticipate it speeding back up again, and just as Cedric's getting on a roll, you kill all momentum with the Noam Dar interference.
Yep.
And it would have been match of the night if that had had a clean finish, regardless as to whether Daivari won or Cedric won. But because of the screwy finish, I'm going to give match of the night to Mustafa Ali and Drew Gulak. Because although this main event match, if you can call it that, obviously we had the Neville segment, but the pacing of it and everything just seemed to gel a bit more, and it was a fresh matchup. We haven't seen Alexander versus Daivari as much as we've seen Ali versus Gulak. And fresh matchups to me that gel well and got the crowd invested because you could actually hear the crowd during this match.
Yeah.
And after a very energetic SmackDown show, the crowd were very hot during the show. I'm going to give them that.
I would say
there's
this
always
is another
complaints
week.
The crowds aren't in it.
I would say this is another week where Gulak and Mustafa Ali kind of are like the unsung heroes. They have been consistently in the middle of these dead crowd shows. By the end of their match, the crowd's invested, and by the time the next match comes around, the crowd's kind of alive, and that's exactly what happened here. I'm also going to say I completely agree, Michael, with the how it took out of the finish, because this is the second time in the past 2 or 3 weeks. I think it was 3 or 2 weeks ago where Noam Dar and Cedric Alexander could have had the match of the night. But Alicia Fox had to pop up on Skype at the finish and ruin it. And it made me pick another match for Best of the Night. And that's exactly what happened again this week. This would have been my match of the night. I couldn't agree more, but I got to give it to Gulak and Ali because of this stupid fucking WWE interference finish. That's really all I got to say. The feud, I don't want to be a broken record, but it's beyond over. I would have liked to seen Cedric at some point by at least late summer be somewhere in the title picture. Do you think at the end of the day it'll suit Alexander better so he doesn't get blurred with an Apollo Crews type character, to go heel if Tozawa gets the belt as a babyface, and then you get Neville out of the title picture if he does drop Tozawa, and then you go Alexander and Tozawa. Is that what you would do? Well, what would you do with Alexander instead of the Noam Dar bullshit they're doing?
Okay, can I link this into the Neville topic?
Sure.
For the close of the show.
Yes, because we do. This is more of a streamlined episode this week, guys. Apologies. I do have a doctor's appointment, so next week though, full episode.
Your health is the most important thing, my friend.
Amen.
I'm a strong proponent. Anybody that, for whatever reason, watches my 205 Live reviews, you'll know that I'm a strong proponent of the hashtag Neville should hold the belt for a year. I tried to get it trending during Raw last week. It didn't work. Neville won the belt at the Royal Rumble from Rich Swann. I feel that he shouldn't drop that belt until at least the Royal Rumble, if not WrestleMania next year, because I am of the understanding that a prolonged championship run with a new title, because this championship isn't a year old yet, remember that, a long, extended run with the championship with a creditable heel champion like Neville is, adds legitimacy and prestige to the championship. So Neville holding the belt as long as possible is fantastic. There are two people that I can see dethroning Neville for the championship, but it's not now because their characters aren't believable. They need the 6 months till the Royal Rumble, or 7 months till the Royal Rumble, or to WrestleMania for 9 months to get over where they are now and get to where they need to be legitimate contenders. And that is Cedric Alexander as a face and Noam Dar as a face. And I've said this a couple of weeks, and I get a lot of stick for saying that Noam Dar is creditable of taking that championship from Neville. They need to use, in my opinion, Alicia Fox as a catalyst for Noam Dar to turn face. He needs to dump her at some point when he realizes that he's losing too much, automatically turn face, because he's dumped the most annoying woman on the fucking show.
Well, you have Dana Brooke there, don't forget.
I can tolerate Dana Brooke because she's not on my television.
God knows I can't.
Noam, babe, and I'm just like, fuck off.
Yeah.
That's generally every time I hear that whine from Alicia Fox. It's the tone. It's just on, thinking about it now.
It's on Stephanie McMahon 2001 levels of bad streakiness. Maybe Vicky Guerrero.
I've heard that. Vicky Guerrero is the one I can link to because that was just as I started watching and she was with Dolph. Excuse me! Oh, that hurt.
99.9% of the time, I would totally agree with your dominant champion, especially as a heel, for holding it. I think on any other show, Neville, that's a great thing to do with him. The problem is they've shot themselves in the foot with 205 Live. It's one of the least watched things on an on-demand network. Nobody's watching it. It's sinking. You know what I mean? And they found themselves in a position now where they have to scrounge at anything. There's been rumors of Mysterio, rumors of Gregory Helms. They are desperate to get eyes on this, and they don't have time to sit around and wait on a heel run, because that's a dominant heel run needs to take place on a main roster show people are actually watching. Because you already have the eyes there and your core audience. With this, you got to get the eyes there first. You know what I mean? And then I think you go that route. And that, shame on them. That's their fucking fault. 205 Live should have never been anything different than what it was in that tournament. Vignettes, great matches, book it like a fucking Ring of Honor show. That's what got it over. It was a glorified indie show on the WWE Network. It's a totally different format. The New Japan format, where it's just match to match to match, there is a demographic for that. And that demographic in the last summer came out full fucking force and praised that show. But they took that buzz and they fucking took a piss on it. They squandered it because they just can't help themselves. And it's just like when ECW came out in 2006 and they rebranded it. Started off hot as shit because they kept it true to what got it over in the first place. But then they put their nuances on it because they just can't help themselves. And we've seen with their XFL football league, their shitty failed WCW rejuvenation, the shitty invasion angle. It always fails when WWE sticks their dick in the Cheerio. Leave the Cheerio alone. It'll break if you put a penis in it. 205 Live is not hard to book, Vince. Not hard to book, Triple H. Whoever the fuck is pulling the strings on this show,
Vince,
you need fucking fired. I hate to say it, especially after what we saw with Brian Kendrick, to just bring everything full circle. And by the way, let's get to the ending promo before I keep ranting. Neville, best part of the show again, besides, the in-ring action.
Yeah.
Michael, what happened with this?
Where do I start? This, I'm not going to say kid because that's so patronizing, but Neville, wow. Like, he never ceases to amaze me with just how good and how impassioned and how much emotion he can elicit from a crowd that don't care.
Yeah.
So let me elaborate on that. Nobody cares about 205 Live because it's an hour after SmackDown Live's finished. They're all tired. They want to go home. Half the crowd's left to get out the car park at the right time, so they're not queuing for an hour.
Yep.
So you're already small crowd because the crowds are dwindling at the moment. It's all over the internet. So you've got a small crowd that's been halved, and Neville is the only one every week that gets on a stick or gets in the microphone, gets in the ring, and can make them stand up, scream, shout, boo, cheer, whatever they're doing. He's the only person to do it, and this week no different. The one thing that I have to say about Neville is people need to leave him alone in the sense of his look.
Are you talking about the Hobbit heckles you could hear on the audio?
I'm sick to death of him.
You could hear it this week too, and that speaks to Neville. He came out there, and you're right. He didn't even have to say a word. He just stood in that ring and let the fans heckle him, and you could hear the Lord of the Rings stuff, and it got the fans even hotter, and that's what a great heel does. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, they praise Kevin Owens. I think Kevin Owens is one of the best heels in business today. But one of the best things Neville does on his entrance is when he goes to pose up top and he says, "Nope, go fuck yourself." That's I love it.
I'm not going to give you what you want.
Yep.
I'm not going to give you what you want, and that's and do you know what? The first time when he first turned heel, I believe it was it Payback or Battleground, one of those last year where Rich Swann had won the championship from Brian Kendrick, and Neville came down. He was a surprise return, and he kicked shit out of everyone.
I think it was TLC, I believe.
First Raw back, he did that, and I sat there and I audibly popped for Neville doing that because the first thing that you're taught when you're developing a heel character is you give the fans, you don't give the fans what they want if you've just turned heel. So everything they're used to change.
Yep.
And Neville has done everything. He's gone from being a completely irrelevant babyface to the most dominant, and he just grabs the crowd by the balls, and he just knows exactly what to do. He can change his character or his promo or his look or his facial expressions, and he can vary it depending on the crowd he's in.
It's one of the biggest lost arts in modern wrestling. A lot of these guys that are heels, that are getting pops that they're not supposed to be getting, stop doing the things that are getting you over. You're a heel. Learn from people like Neville. Learn from people like my man Michael right here, who's not even a worker and knows simple logic. When you start doing that, you're blurring the lines, and that gets nobody over. There's only certain instances that works. AJ Styles couldn't do anything. He could have farted and he would have still been over because they should have never turned him heel in the first place. But in other scenarios, you know what I mean? Like, you're exactly right. And Neville doesn't get enough credit. Unfortunately, my friend, we are almost out of time. I want to be sure, because you have so much going on, and I want to get you guys' name out there. One more time, where can everyone check out BearClub, all your homies, and where you're at on Twitter, all your tremendous content, my friend?
Oh, thank you. So yeah, as I said, I'll do all the guys at BearClub real quick. So it's myself, MSporate316 on Twitter and on YouTube. Kristen, who you've obviously had on the channel, Miss March89 on Twitter. She doesn't currently have a YouTube channel, but she has revealed on your channel before telling us that she's making a YouTube channel at some point. So you got the scoop on that one. I'm a little bit jealous. We've also got Grizz, or at Bear Wrestle News on Twitter and on YouTube. His brother Khalid, I Call Shenanigans, or Shenanigans Calls on Twitter. And currently taking a hiatus, the Cub of the Club, Jacob Hernandez, or at _Total Immortal, doesn't have a YouTube channel at the moment. Go and check all of those guys out. I will send out tweets off my channel and my Twitter page with all their links and everything like that. And yeah, just thank you very much for having us on the show, being able to promote our stuff. There is exciting things to come on that channel. And obviously, if you want to hear posh ginger kid from the UK talk shit about wrestling, check me out.
And no worries, man. It was beyond a pleasure to have you on finally, and hopefully in the future look to have you on many more times. And all seriously, though, guys, real quick before we got here, Logan, at Logan Myers 144. The co-host of Cruise Control. Feel better, my friend. We hope to have you back here next week. I will hit you up, and please let me know what's going on, man. We care about you, worry about you, love you, Pally, and talk to you soon. Michael, like I said, thank you so much again. You guys, BearClub, are tremendous people. Glad I met you. Another lovely Brit friend of mine over there. So I love all you guys in the UK, by the way. Our listeners and stuff in the UK are probably our most hardcore fans. So we love you guys so much. And keep doing what you're doing. Say what you want about the UK people, man. You guys love pro wrestling, and that's what I love about you guys. Until next time, follow me on Twitter at @TheBigTMD. Check out the Reset Button, Slam Pigs Podcast, Slam Pigs Cruise Control, and Slam Pigs Union's back with the Maniac Matt Tennant. Until next time, this is Cruise Control. See you next week.